Hello and welcome to week 5 of Staycation Flowers here on Zoom. Now, something a little bit different today because it is the summer holidays. I've actually made plans to go out and visit friends, clashing with the time that class normally starts. So I am pre-recording this video and filming it in the same way as I always do, so hopefully nothing will look different for you. And what I'm hoping to do when I send you out the video ready for class is I'm going to set it unlisted as I normally do, so it's not a publicly available video, but I'm also going to try and set it as a premiere, which means if we all watch it together, we can comment on the video together. So I'll be able to be as close to live as possible to answer any of your questions as they crop up. So in order to do that, because I have got a lunch date on Tuesday, I am going to see if I can set that premiere for 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning. So perhaps you can watch with me over breakfast. And as usual, the video will just be 40 minutes max length. So hopefully you'll be able to do that. And of course, if that's not convenient to you, the video will still be available in the normal way. And if you've got any questions, you can always ask them either by replying to the email that I send you. You can comment on the video. Now, my understanding is because the videos are unlisted, the video isn't publicly viewable, and therefore your comments aren't publicly viewable, but I can respond to them. So if you find it easier, while you're thinking of things, just to respond to the YouTube video, I can do that. And of course, if you've got any other questions, always welcome to drop me a line via social media. So Flower Start World on Facebook, the Facebook group is the place you'll find me most often. And also on Instagram at Flower Start with an underscore in. So I love seeing all your photographs and how you interpret each of the projects that I show you. So on with the show. So normally, as you know, I show you what we did last time. So my flowers are looking super perky because it's only been a day or so since I last made them. So this is the tray of floral sushi we made. So this was a little taster class on using your flower foam. If you're not confident with you using flower foam, or it may be that you're using offcuts of flower foam. So we used the one same method throughout, wrapping up our piece of flower foam in cellophane, so that's nice and watertight. We did the simple leaf wrapping method with just a single pearl-headed pin there. I did one, this was the one I had made earlier for you. So it's the leaf underneath in the same way. Gosh, that rhymes almost, doesn't it? And then the piece of lace I've got, and then I've got lots of pearl-headed pins holding that lace in place. And then I made a shorter one as well. And this one is a tiny bit different from the one you saw me making class. I'm always under a bit of pressure to make things in class. So during the making crate afterwards, this is what I did. So I wrapped my leaf around, and I don't know whether you can see, but the little insert there is actually one of the crochet doilies. So I did show you pinning on a crochet doily, but I finessed the technique a little bit after class. And then I've tied that off with a bit of ribbon here and then fastened it in place with a button with a couple of the pearl-headed pins through it. And I've been enjoying these. I've made 3 because there's 3 people in my family, and we've been living it up at breakfast time and having a proper set breakfast with napkins, and we've each got our own flower arrangement. And then I've put them on a tray just sort of for added impact. It also means that if I put these on my coffee table in the living room or put them on my dining room table, I don't have to fiddle around trying to carry all those individual flower arrangements. I can just pick them up in one go and cart them off. So would you like to know what we're doing next week? So let me put this to one side and I will show you. So next week we're getting social again, and communal flower arrangements, imagining having friends and family around, holidaying with friends and family, or perhaps you're going to be a house guest with friends and family. So this next arrangement is a great project to do if you're on your own or with people. But it's sort of got a communal feel to it. So your basic ingredients are a jug and a drinking glass. You can imagine having Pimm's or sangria put in the 2 here. We're going to do an arrangement in the jug, which I'm sure many of you have done before. So it's your choice of flowers and greenery. And actually, as I see my flowers over my shoulder behind me, perhaps if I'm really clever, I could put my jug there in order that you could imagine the type of arrangement that we might be making. So again, it's your choice. So whether you've got a garden full of flowers, oh, I am so envious if you have, or whether you're doing a supermarket run, you're picking up your flowers, whether you've got a local flower farm you pick from, whether you're going to your florist, you need to be thinking about materials that are, you know, that you love, that you've fallen in love with. But think about your colours. Perhaps next week is the time to really test your colour combinations. Go wild. If you're normally sort of subtle, understated pinks and whites, go bold and go wild. And then decide about what greenery you need as well. So if you don't have many flowers or your budget doesn't stretch to lots of flowers, if you have got access to garden green, that will really help you because it really does fill your vase out. So that is the pure flower arranging element this week. And then with the glass, we're doing something a little bit different. And this has been inspired by one of you. You know who you are. You posted a photograph in the Facebook group, oh, it must be several months ago now, with a little arrangement made with straws on the edge. So I have bought myself a pack of 144 white paper straws. So there is a link to, there is a link to these straws in the handout that you'll find accompanying this video, and I'm going to put them in there. We're not exactly going to be doing that, but we're going to be attaching straws to the edge of the vase and then bending some of them down and doing a little bit of weaving between the two. And then if you want to use a few flowers from your jug arrangement, put them into your vase, it will sort of visually look as if you're pouring out of the jug and then into your little sort of more crafted flower arrangement. So that's next week. And as ever, if you've got any questions, you're confused by what I'm saying to you, do get in touch, do reply to that email, message me on Facebook, or ask a group question on Facebook. I'm sure there'll be loads of other people, if you're needing to ask the question that perhaps others don't understand either. So again, I will put these out of my way there and come on to this week. So the middle of the summer holidays, and actually it's the middle of this 10-week course. It is week 5. So I thought, what better way to celebrate the summertime and a staycation by using a sandcastle bucket to make a flower arrangement in. So this is a bit of an upmarket flower sandcastle bucket. I don't think it'll be ever anywhere near the sand, but I thought it was a nice classic container. Of course, if you have got children around, grandchildren, your own children, you may find it quite fun to make an arrangement in an actual bucket, and perhaps you've got all the, the little shovels and the rakes and things like that. You could build a little display up. Or if you think, well, really, my sandcastle days are over, well, how about making your arrangement in a ceramic plant pot? So either a terracotta pot that you might use outside, or one of the ceramic pots that you'd use for your indoor garden plants. And then you need some flowers. So what I've tried to do is sort of think about my sunny summer holidays. So I have bought myself some sunflowers. Now these can be a little bit tricky to use because they have got really, really chunky stems. And when I came to condition my flowers, when I got my scissors out and trying to cut the stems, I found that even with my floristry scissors, the stems were really chunky, as you can see, and it was quite hard to cut. So this is going to perhaps be one of the few times you'll see me using a floristry knife. And normally when I'm teaching, I don't like to use a floristry knife because I think it's sort of, it might put you off if you're not using a knife, if you don't have a knife and you think you've got to have the special skill. You could try doing this with a really, really sharp vegetable knife, but just be careful not actually going to be cutting yourself. And what you might want to do if you want to practice your knife skills is practicing there is to put a piece of sticking plaster around the thumb that you hold your knife in, because the action is that you take your knife and you draw it across your flower towards that thumb. So I've got my piece of offcut of stem balancing on that blade, but then I've got my nice fresh cut over there. If you're used to using a vegetable knife for preparing your vegetables at home, I always suspect that you're probably used to that kind of technique, depending on, for instance, whether you cut your carrots, chop, chop, chop down the board, or whether do you ever pick the carrot up and chop them towards you. So all the time, the blade is sharp, but it's sort of that action. I'm keeping my thumb steady and I'm pushing my blade, she says, trying to keep her thumb steady, I'm pushing my blade towards my thumb, but not so fast that you know, I'm slicing the top of my thumb off. And that's why if you are practicing, it might be an idea to have a precautionary sticking plaster on your thumb. So I have got my flowers here. I've got a block of flower foam here. It's slightly misshapen because I used some of it in class last week, but I didn't want to start a fresh block again. And then over my shoulder, you'll see I've got other flowers as well. So I've got some asters and some lisianthus and also some freesia as well. So I'm going to go on an all flower arrangement. Previously in class, we've done things and we haven't gone overboard with the flowers, but I thought, you know, well, midway through, we give ourselves a pat on the back, and I'm going to go flower crazy. The only issue I'm going to have is with the top surface of my flower foam, that of course you're going to be able to see the tiny bits of oasis that are left. But my idea was that I'm going to top dress the surface of my foam, and I've just remembered I've left all my top dressing materials in my workshop. But I had a thought that perhaps I sometimes pick up shells from the beach, or I found a nice bit of crockery actually. It looks like a tile I found in a ploughed up field, but just things like that. So you could either dot your top surface with greenery after you finished or as you go, or you know, you put a top surface of gravel on the top, or it could be the place that you put all your sort of beach findings on the top surface of your container. And just a word of caution as well about just picking randomly from the beach, that you do need to do it with care. And I know some beaches don't allow you or don't encourage you to take shells and pebbles from the beach. But I did go to the seaside yesterday. We had a trip out down the road from us and had fish and chips on the beach. And I noticed that one of the stalls on the harbour arm had bags of seashells. So even if you know, if you want to get the look, it may be that you need to buy yourself a bag of seashells. And of course, if you don't live near the seaside, or you aren't holidaying by the seaside, that you know, you're not going to be able to put shells on the top. But just another way of doing things. Let's not, you know, let's go away from the norm of always having greenery with our flowers, and perhaps we could use something else instead. Now, I was going to test whether my container was watertight. And again, I totally forgot to do that. So I think this is going to be watertight. I can see in the bottom, it looks like it's got a really, really good seal. I can't see any obvious holes. But if you are concerned that your container isn't watertight, what you could do is get a food bag. You know, you've had your packed lunch, you put it in this, you know, a Ziploc bag, reuse the bag, or a bread bag, just something that hasn't got holes in it, and put it down into your container and roll the top over the edge is one option. And the other option is I've got some cellophane sheets left over from when we did the flower sushi, and you could line your pot with a cellophane sheet. And if you're really lucky, when you come to unwrap your flowers, you may find you've got a full cellophane sheet, normally with the little sort of sleeves or cuffs. From memory, I think as well as having holes top and bottom to get flowers in, I think they have little holes punched in it just to avoid suffocation. So if you are repurposing, you know, a plastic bag, you know, a food bag or a piece of flower wrap, just make sure that it is actually watertight. So the first job of the day is to decide how much flower foam you need. Now I'm going to make this arrangement, and it's going to be a column of flowers, a really impactful column of flowers that I'm going to imagine, you know, if I was dressing my home, if I was having guests, that this is going to be the showstopper arrangement somewhere where people will be lingering and admiring my flowers. So it may be that I would put it in my hall, or that I've got a really good spot in the living room where people spend lots of time. So it's like a statement piece. It's not going to be huge, but just it's going to say, welcome to my home. These are my flowers. I've been really abundant here, and let's all have a great time at our staycation. So I'm going to make this in a more contemporary way, and by that I mean I'm not going to get my flower foam to rise up above the edge of my container. If you've been to lots of flower classes and a member of a flower club, it's probably one of the things you remember is that you always do put your flower foam into your container a little bit higher, and that's so that you can put your stems in sideways, or so they hang down. So this arrangement, I'm going to have my flower foam a couple of centimetres below the ridge, so I can only put flowers in upright. So that's automatically giving me a very contemporary modern look to my flowers. This isn't going to be a traditional English style flower arrangement because there's going to be nothing draping down. I'm going to try and get away from that sort of traditional triangle. So the first thing I do is I hold my phone up against my container and make a best guess as to how high I want my phone to be. So I've got an old table knife I use for that. So you can see if I wanted it level, I would need to mark my phone there, but I want to come down a little bit lower. So I'm going to go there. So I'm just making the tiniest of marks across there. Actually, as I do that, it's exactly half a block of flower foam. I don't know if you've noticed on your blocks of flower foam, you always have these two lines. So a third of a block fits into the little plastic trays, but they do also mark the tiny little mark there, a little gash, and that marks the halfway point. So lo and behold, if you've got a bucket the same size as me, it's halfway. So I will cut down on that mark, very squeaky, and I will put aside that piece of flower foam to use for another project, or perhaps I'll make some more flower sushi with my leftovers. And then it's how do you get that piece of foam, that rectangular shape, into your round container. So you just put it in and it just stays at the top. I've got too much at the top. So you are going to have to do a little bit of shaping or chamfering. So I like to do this when my foam is dry. You may prefer, if you don't like that squeaky noise, you might want to soak your flower foam first. But then I do find I've got loads of wet pieces of foam that I need to pick up and it all gets a bit soggy. And what I would suggest you do here is you want to keep that flat surface on the top, the full extent, because that's where your flowers are going to go. And you just want to shape it at the bottom. So I always start off my shaping about 1 centimetre down from the top, something like that. And don't take off too much. So I'm taking off each of the 4 corners. So I'm getting left with these sort of little wedge-shaped pieces, would have been there originally, and it's just taking off, shaping it a little bit, because the foam needs to be narrower at the bottom than it is at the top in order to fit in the bucket. So actually, I do believe that's about right. That's all I've needed to do. I am, as I push it down, pushing slightly, so I could take a little bit more off. But the thing is, I'm not going to use any pot tape to hold my foam in place. So I want it to be held by the height of the container. And also is, a bit of tightness. I've got quite a tight fit there. So when I come, and I'll come on to that a little bit later, getting ahead of myself, you need to remember, even though it's just 1 block of foam, which way you're going to put it in to your container when you've soaked it, but we'll come on to that. So hopefully I won't forget. So off on the side here, I have got myself a bowl of water. I would normally, if I wasn't filming, I would be doing this, well, not so much in my kitchen sink, but I have a sink in my utility room with an old washing up bowl, and I would fill my washing up bowl with water and then let my foam sink. So when you're letting your foam sink, it's a matter of putting it on the top surface and just letting it sink of its own accord. I was momentarily concerned there that when I put my foam onto the top surface of the water, actually my foam was going to be too big for the jug, and thank goodness it is slipping down nicely. And you want to avoid, poking it down, pushing it straight away down. And I always say to my ladies who come to my real life classes, or ladies that do the church flowers, don't ever let anyone else soak your flower foam. You want to know that it is settled down and soaked of its own accord, and it hasn't just gone dark because someone has pushed it underwater. You want to make sure all that water has gone right through to the centre, because all our flower stems will be right inside. So I think I have got a little bit of a problem here, live on air, that as my foam is soaked, it's got caught in my shaped container. So what do you do then? So what I'm going to do very carefully, you can see here that it is soaked about 9/10 of the way through. So what I'm going to gently do is roll it on its side and just try and wait for that. I can see the water, I don't know whether you can, but it is starting to climb up that sort of cliff face of the flower foam there. So just to be a little bit careful about that. Not ideal, but do as I do and don't do as I say. You really need to have a big old container for this. So I'm going to take that out there. I've just got that tiny bit left there. So I'm going to roll it around there and just let it lie down and take up that last little bit. Can you see that green, pale green line that is just disappearing? So that didn't go quite as well as I'd expected, but never mind. I know that 9/10 of it did soak really, really well. And when I pick it up, it's, you know, I can feel it's heavy. There is a lot of water in there. So again, really big bowl, and account for the fact that as your foam sinks, it still needs to have enough width in the bowl to get going. So what I'm going to do now is to think about my bucket. Where do you want to have the handle in your bucket? So do you want to have it straight down the front? Do you want to have it off to one side, or do you want to pretend there isn't a handle at all? So I'm going to keep my handle dead centre. And what you'll notice with my flower foam, it's rectangular in shape. So I could either put it into my container and have this at the front and this at the back. But if I turned it round, I could have this at the front, and then I've got much more space, sort of intervening levels to put my flowers in. So I'm going to make sure when I put my flower foam into my bucket, I have got the full width of the foam. There's my handle at the front. It gives me lots of depth, lots of width in the foam to put my flowers in. So I am going to aim to put quite a lot of flowers in, and I'm just concerned if I'd had it that way round, I'm not going to get that sort of depth of interest. You know, you don't always want your flowers on that front level. You want to see the flowers through, giving it three-dimensional quality to your arrangement. So it's not just what's on the front plane, it's what's in the middle and what you can glimpse around at the back as well. So there we are, mechanics are done. I shall move that out of the way. And then let's look at our flowers. Before I bring the camera, actually I might not bring the camera across today. That would be a little revelation, wouldn't it? But I wanted to show you my sunflowers. So they've all got, you know, a single stem, a single flower on a single stem. I probably took a few of the leaves off when I conditioned them. I can't quite remember, but they don't have any leaves on them. So you need to get to know your flowers. And what I've done here with my flowers is I have chosen focal flower. So a big, large, impactful flower. I've chosen sunflowers. You might choose gerberas. If you've got dahlias in your garden, you might be choosing dahlias. There's something that's got a bit of dramatic impact. So your eye immediately goes to something. And I chose the sunflowers because I thought they looked lovely and sunny. But you need to have a look at each of your flowers before you decide and get sort of gung-ho with your arranging. Is, you know, what flower is going to fulfill what purpose in your arrangement? Because I am going to have my flowers, I've got 5 of them. I'm going to have one low, and you can imagine I'm going to have them traveling up through my arrangement. Now, I don't normally talk about rules of flower arranging because I think it can stifle your creativity and put you off in terms of confidence. But one thing you do need to think about is that your biggest, most open flower should be at the bottom. And as you progress up this sort of little ladder of flowers, you will have your smallest flower at the top. Now, if you're using something like sunflowers, when they're all, you know, the same size, they're all quite big, or gerberas, the consistent size, or carnations, all a consistent size, you'll just need to lay everything out in front of you. Just say, have I got one flower that looks more open and more dramatic than the rest? And then take a look at them. So I've got this flower here, which rather annoyingly has got quite a hooked neck to it. That's quite straight. So how do they look? And then I've got one that's sort of partially hooked, not quite as hooked as that one. Oh, this looks like a telephone there. And I've got another straight one, and then a rather annoying, sort of slightly kinky one as well. So what I'm going to do, and perhaps if I shuffle everything a little bit further back, you'll be able to see, I need to lay these flowers out in front of me to see whether I can discern whether there is a larger flower amongst all of those. And this is quite tricky to do. So out of the 2 there, for me, this one is the biggest one. So that one's a little bit smaller. Out of the 2 there, I would say that one's slightly bigger than that one. Out of the 2 there, that one's definitely the smallest. And then this one, I think, does look quite big, but is it as big as that one there? So in front of me, I have got my flowers laid out. You know, they're all pretty much the same size. But the big, what I feel is biggest is here. Now I'm just thinking, because I can see the head in that one, the black centre. It sort of makes it look bigger. Something else to consider as well, that sort of optical illusion of what is actually bigger. You could spend ages thinking about this. But what you want to make sure is you don't have your smallest flower at the bottom and then your biggest flower at the top, because it will look like visually that your whole arrangement is about to topple over. And this is what we talk about when we talk about visual balance. There's two kinds of balance. There's actual balance, is your flower arrangement sturdy? And then the visual balance, does it just look balanced? And what you need to think about, I always think about it because I love looking at old buildings, is when you go around looking at historic houses, you'll notice that the ground floor windows are really tall. And then as you go up the house, you'll end up with the attic windows are really small. And that's the way I think about it. It all looks as if it's weighted and sort of seated and grounded on the bottom. So having sorted out my flowers, I then need to cut them at different heights to have a look and see how they're going to go, which is always a bit nerve-wracking. Should I start with the smallest flower at the top, or should I start with the biggest flower at the bottom? Decisions. So I want this arrangement to be as big as it can possibly be. So I am going to start with the top flower first. So I'm going to give it a fresh cut, and I've just mislaid my knife under there. Fresh cut. So my arrangement, I'm just making sure I can get that on the shot there. Perhaps I ought to do it here where it's a little bit plain. I might just move these things to one side so I'm not distracted by my drop of water. And I will do my arranging from the front like that. So here is my smallest flower. And I'm going to go to all. So I'm going to give it a fresh cut, as we always do, using my florist knife. In fact, I could probably use my scissors there. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to put it in right at the back of my flower foam. I'm putting it in central at the back. Now, how far should you push your flower stems in? You don't want to go all the way to the bottom, because they won't be able to pick up any water. And the bigger your flower and the heavier your flower is, I will put it in slightly further than normal. Probably with most of my flowers, I put them in a couple of centimetres, but these ones, because they're so heavy, I don't want them to fall over. So I'm going to push that down. It's probably gone about halfway down. Now, can you see I've got my stem straight, and my head's a bit twisty? So you might want to disposition them so your head's in the right place and try and ignore what's going on with the stems a little bit. So I think I might find this easier. I'm going to put my flowers in, and then I will turn them round as we go. So I'm working down my line. So I want each flower to be a little bit separate, a little bit of a gap, so it doesn't just look like I've got a yellow stripe going through. It's going to look like I've got individual sunflowers coming through. So what I'll do is I pull the pot towards me so I can let my long stem fall down the other side of my kitchen table, and I measure up. So I want a little bit of a gap, and I know I want it to be in the flower foam, and I'm going to cut it about there. So that's probably taken 5 centimetres off the bottom. And as I put it in, I'm going to go offset a little bit. So what you're going to do, have your first flower here, and then you're going to go here, and then here, and then here, and then here. So although we talk about a line of flowers, it's actually what in floristry and flower arranging you talk about as being a lazy S. It's just an offset line. So I'm finding the bit of the flower that I like best, moving it around towards me. And I have absolutely got to commit at this stage, because if I get it wrong, yes, I could pull the stem out, but they're leaving whacking great big holes in the flower foam. And you can imagine the flat surface of the foam. You know, I could do it once perhaps and correct myself, but if I'm constantly moving things around, I'm just going to end up with pock-marked flower foam, and it's going to go downhill from there. So I'm putting that in there, and before I push down, I'm just going to, for me, I'm going to the left-hand side of that. I'm pushing it down like that. And perhaps I could have cut this a little bit shorter. I can feel myself pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, but it goes like that. The next time I'm going to sort of go bring that back more centrally, and I'll just twist it towards me, come down a little bit. Of course, remembering your stems won't bend, so you do need to really pull your pot down to one side. I'm going to come up here, I've marked it with my finger, and then cut with my knife and then coming forwards a little bit. Yes, yes, yes. So you can see now that that first stem is sort of hidden by the stem over here. And then carry on. So down, down, down. We're getting quite short now. It's got a bit of kink. Like that. And then this one, quite often, when I put in my last flower, can you see how I put them all in upright? Quite often I put my last flower in horizontally. Just slightly difficult when you have cut your foam so it's underneath the rim of the container. It would have been really easy to do in a traditional placement of foam because it would have come up higher and I could just have slid it in. But if you put it in upright, sometimes it just looks like it's all hanging. So I'm going to try and put this last piece in and have it sort of resting horizontally. Let's see whether that works. So it needs to be short, this long. I'm going to come, I haven't quite achieved what I set out to achieve because of the kink, but can you see that this last one is totally, it's practically resting on the edge of the container. And if I show it round, it's quite an odd angle. This is why I say you need really to look about where the flower heads are going rather than the stem. So when I look at that in the camera, I'm thinking, oh, I wish I put it all a bit tighter, like that. Perhaps I could make it look tighter by twisting that around a bit. You don't always need to see the front face of your flowers. You don't want everything on show, like headlights, boom, 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 boom. You want to have a flower on show, a slightly shy one, and one that's really shy. So I don't mind the fact that actually it feels like I've put that twisted, that sunflower around a bit, because it actually gives me that tighter look that I'm after. So there we go. And of course, when you're arranging at home, I don't normally arrange my flowers sitting down. I'd be standing up and looking back, and I'm sure you do the same thing too. So let's clear away these stem ends. I've got my compost bucket to one side and bring in some of the other flowers that I've got. So I'm going to do a little bit of sorting at this stage. I have got some purple lisianthus, a great contrast for the yellow of the sunflower. I've also got some yellow freesia to continue the yellow. Freesia there. A few more stems. And if you have got all your flowers in a bucket like me, you do need to be careful when you pour them out. It's sort of a case of a waggle and a twist because you don't want to be breaking anything. And then I've got some white roses. Now, I'm not entirely sure about these because of normally when I use white, I don't like to use it with really, really bright colours. I think the bright colours look really great together, really bold and flashy. But I wanted to fill out my arrangement a little bit. And I went to the supermarket and I had to buy what was there. But I did think, well, some of the lisianthus, it's got a mixed bunch, where these ones have just got a purple rim to them. So it does lend me a little bit of whiteness. So I'm going to put some of the white down there. Not sure whether I'm going to use them all. We'll have to wait and see. And then for a bit of, high summer madness, I've got some of these bright pink asters, which are muddled up with all my roses. So the bright pink. Okay, so I'm going to put those back on the side. I can dib into those later. So what I like to do when I add in my flowers is I work through one flower at a time. In my mind, I was going to use delphiniums, but when was the last time you saw delphiniums in the supermarket? I have been lucky sometimes. So what I'm going to do is I want to continue that length. So the flower that I've got for length is actually these lisianthus. Now some of them are going over. The most full blooms I've just had a bit too much. So I'm going to snip those off. So you want to be arranging with perfect materials. And actually, as I snip that off, I can just see there's another stem there that's got no flowers on it. So So just trim that out as well, but I'll keep the flower so it looks natural. I think actually these were probably the stem I used for my floral sushi the other day, so that explains why I've got things that are missing. But you do need to work through your flowers because you want them to be tip-top. And of course, with age, the flowers will start to decline. So you can't expect them to look perfect all the time. So working with that purpley theme, those that fall off, let's go bold, let's go big, let's go bold. So I have got, oops, a skinny stem of the purple and a stem here that's got, well, it's another stem, but it's got branches. So what I'm going to do here is I want to have my purple colour from top to bottom. So I'm going to fill in the gap. So where I've got this gap between the two yellow sunflowers, I'm going to aim to put my first purple placement up there. So I need to hold it in place. I need to eye up where that's going to go. I think that's probably a bit long. I'm going to cut that a little bit. Sometimes if you leave your flowers too long, the time you're pushing them down because you want the head at a certain height, you run the risk that you're going to break them. So don't go too long. You can always cut a little bit off. So I'm putting that down there. Oh, I like that because, can you see it? Actually, it's the different camera angle. But what I was noticing was that this little side shoot there has just filled that gap in there a little bit. So again, I'll have to twist it back to me so I can see what I'm doing. But I'm going to cut off these side shoots and get myself some placements. I might do that. So from that one stem, I've got 3 stems, and I might even cut off that little side shoot there if it looks like it's too much. So I've got purple at the back. I can see a little skimpy purple there. I'm going to bring the purple to the front. So again, let's pull this towards me. I want that purple up there. So I can cut that there. And then feed in between the flower stems so it looks natural. You're starting to blur the stems of those sunflowers. They are really chunky, those sunflowers, but you can see how I've put that in now. You see also from the side how I'm working right from the back of the phone through that length or depth of the phone to the front. So I've put that one in there, it's coming forwards. And then I'm going to come in a little bit lower. Now this is great. When you get a piece of Lisianthus like this and you just know that these 2 leaves are going to settle on the top surface of the phone. So I'll need less greenery or less of my shells to cover up the phone, because that bit of phone will be covered by a piece of greenery. So that's gone in just down there. And then I want something out at this side here. In fact, I might get even more placements out of this single piece of the phone. So I'm going to come quite short here and bring that out to the front a little bit. So my arrangement, although it's tall, it doesn't, it's not totally confined to the cylindrical shape of my container. You can see there, it is breaking the edge of the container a little bit. So I've got that in there, but it does look very sort of exposed on this side. So I'm going to start to, that's a little bit low perhaps, not quite sure, it's got a little dead stem there. Perhaps if I just push that in, and that can just go in a couple of centimetres, but you'll start to notice where the gaps are. So be informed about where your gappage is. And all the time, I'm moving my container around so you can see what I'm doing. That's part of the reason why I put my handle right at the front. I know that every time I come back, that handle has to be at my front. If I sort of got distracted, I might suddenly be thinking, oh, this is the front here, and you'll end up with an arrangement that's sort of gone a bit skew-if. So all the time I'm bringing it back to me and then looking and thinking, what do I want to add in next? Well, I might go next for the asters. The intent, again, trying to keep that intensity of colour. I bought all those white roses and I'm just not quite sure whether they're the right thing. So this time I started off with my purple Lisianthus and I went to this side of my sunflower. I'm going to come in with my asters and repeat the pattern, but this time I'm going to put the first placement over here. So not everything's always put in on the same side. I'm going, one side with one side with the other. So I'll show you what I'm doing here. So I'm measuring up. So again, these can be quite tall. In fact, these are probably just about the right height, but I just need to recut the stems because it's good practice to do that. So that can go in there like that. Actually, it's ended up right sort of underneath that, the throat of that one. Again, it's covering up the stem a little bit as well. So these are single individual flowers. They're not as, they don't hold as much volume or space as the lisianthus. So I might get away with putting in, you know, perhaps 2 at a time, just offset a little bit. So I shall come through like that, just to fill in the gap there, 2 there. Perhaps I might do that all the way down, so that I'm saying in my mind that 2 asters equals 1 spray of the lisianthus. So I've come in that side. Next time I need to come in down about here. So measure up, pull my container right to the edge of the table so I can eye up my stem length. And the same again here. Oh, I thought that one was dead, but actually looks like it's got 3 mini heads all in one go. But it's a good idea just to look at things, just to make sure you're not putting your, you know, you're putting your best flowers in. Taking off the green at the bottom, because I don't want any of that getting into the flower frame. I'm pulling it down like that. So, boom, boom. Well, I need some here now. Remember where I was pointing to. So here we're getting really short. Off the green leaves that might get into the foam. Bottom there. Pair it up with another one. Like that. And then I can see a gap across this side. Something needs to come there. So even though I'm doing this as a front-facing arrangement, I will need to give something at the back. You don't want your arrangement to look half finished. So I will start to bring materials around to the corner edges. And in fact, these pieces of aster, which aren't in flower yet, would make a good substitute for greenery. So if I do need to fill in, or I want some sort of, I want a body of plant material there, but I don't necessarily want colour, they will be good to use then. I think this can go really short. So that's probably about 8 centimetres long. And I think I might reach round for another one at the bottom there as well. And I'll put that out just to one side a little bit, just to give it a tiny bit of width, to sort of balance out that placement of the sunflower, so it doesn't look as if it's a bit skew-width. And then going through, actually, I don't think I need these white roses. I am so pleased. It felt a little bit odd when I was buying them, thinking, oh, if we were out of pastels, I wanted something really striking and really colourful. So now what I'm going to do next is fill in with my smallest flower. So do you see it as I work through? I started with my largest flower. Small, medium and large is the way we're used to saying things. I've gone in with my large flower, then my medium size, and then my smalls. I always like to think of things in threes, but you can do multiples of threes. So for instance, my asters and my lisianthus and my mediums. So now I'm going to come in and making sure I've got it to the front again, blend everything again through, and starting off with my buds of my freesia. And actually that one is a bud compared to some of the more opened ones. So that I should try and put that one in high up. Oh, apart from the fact I've just broken it. Oops, so that'll go down lower. I'm just trying to find one that's, you know, quite tight. So here, recut the stems. These ones are shorter than all the other flowers. So I'm just going to have to work with what I have got. But I can see that. Can you see that I've just put that in and it's just here? It's just that flash of yellow. Repeats the yellow, but it's a bit smaller. It's not overwhelming. And then, of course, I've got some kinky ones. What should I do with that? Well, sometimes you don't want a kinky bit to come out to the side because it sort of lends a different look. If I bury that in the middle of the arrangement, it will give this, you know, that I will just see the stem and you'll have to look for it. So what I'm doing is holding my flower up to where I want it to be and then cutting it. And I know, actually, ironically, in order for my flower stem to be, the head to be there, I've got to actually put it in right over here. So it's not always a straight up and down. You do need to think on your feet. So what I'm doing here, in order to get down, I've had to part that lisianthus a little bit and then feeding my fingers through, just making sure it is actually in the foam. Aha, it wasn't in the foam, it was sliding down between the foam and the bucket. So it's actually ended up there. And I will continue to infill. So again, I need to get them, nice and evenly distributed. I don't want to have them all down one side or, all in the middle. They need to have that flow, almost so you don't notice them. You don't want to think it isn't, you want to make sure it's not a jarring element. So it's getting harder to put the stems in because they are falling away. Now then, to get it in the right place, sometimes I might, that's too tall, it's too tall. You can always prop them up against some of the other flowers. There, that's better. Again, there's that one there. So I've kind of done a top placement, making sure I'm bringing it back down to me. So cutting again, eyeing up and cutting, just being really careful that I don't crush or break any stems. I think that needs to go slightly lower. So instead of pushing it down lower, I'm going to cut it lower. It's when you try and push, to get the flower head down, that you'll end up breaking the stem. And of course, once it's broken, it is short, so you won't be able to fix it in. And then I might have a little dash out to the side here, a little flash of yellow, just something coming over the edge there. I might have a tiny bit of yellow to the other side. Try not to go triangular, but old habits die hard. Just a little bit of balance. In fact, I can feel there's something missing up here. So what are we going to do there? Might put that stem in there and have that coming out at the edge over there, and just make sure it is actually in the foam and holds steady. So I think I've done it without the red roses. I can see a hole though. Can you see a hole there? Where did I see that hole? This is quite good when you come to use your camera. When you think you've finished arranging, always to walk away and see where the holes are. I think there's a hole just there. I've got this purpley tinged lisianthus. I wonder whether I could put that in there. And if I don't like it, I can always whip it out. So nothing is committed until you decide your flower arrangement is finished. But it is. I'm starting to introduce a flash of white. Not sure whether I want that flash of white there or not. I think I might rest on that actually. I'm not entirely sure whether I like the white. And now I've added in one bit of white. I see another gap here. I think perhaps as long as I don't actually put the white roses in, I'll be okay, because these do have a little flash of colour. And then I've got a tiny lisianthus left. That stem head there is not going to recover. Nice long piece there. Perhaps I should put that right at the back, and that's rather nicely semi-disguising the stem of that tallest sunflower. So there we have it, ladies. So I am left with what I'm going to do at the back, and as I say, I was going to fill it up with shells and things like that, which I've left in the workshop. So I'm going to take the opportunity of using my little bits of the heads of the asters, the sort of rosette form, and I will fill that out at the back. And then when I go into my workshop next, I will have a look at the shells and the pebbles that I've got and see whether I want to add them. But in the meantime, yeah, it's that job of just covering up the foam. So if you like greenery in your flowers, as a matter of course, I would save it to last, because you haven't got much foam to play with, and you don't, you want to get your flowers in. And the greenery in this instance can be a little secondary consideration. So if I turn that round the other way, you will see now that I'm weighted at the back quite clearly. It's got a back and a front. But if you were to look and just get that sideways glimpse, you're not going to say, oh, she's missed out on her greenery, hasn't she? So it all looks rather finished. So what I will do now is I will clear away my workspace. I will put the flowers where I think they would like to, I would want to have them. I've got a place in mind. And then that's when I can do my final little adjustments. I can just stay back. I do think it needs to be slightly tighter, and it may be, if I just move one flower around, it sort of hooked around the back of the other flower, it would sort of stay a little bit more compact at the top. I don't really want it fanning out. But the point was, it was supposed to look joyful, it was supposed to look happy, it was supposed to look exuberant and abundant, and with a flash of yellow from my sunshine and my beach bucket. If you need me, I'll be making sandcastles down on the beach. So that is all from me for now for next week. So I'll catch up with you this week. That's all from me for now for this week, and I'll catch up with you next time when we're going to do the jug arrangement. So a more informal arrangement of flowers in a jug and a more crafted version of a little drinking glass. So we'll probably make the drinking glass first, because that will be more of a crafting element, and then I'll put the flowers into the jug after that. So I hope you have a great time. I hope you're enjoying your summer holidays, and don't forget to let me know what you're doing with your staycation plans. I love hearing from you. So I'm going to sign off now and catch up with you next time.